So, I want to do something a little different today. I've covered AI and 3D art from a lot of angles on this channel. The skills being disrupted, the tools worth using, the mental models becoming obsolete, the shift from prompt jockey to creative director. We've gone deep on all of it, but I've never just sat down and given you my honest, personal take on the big question. The one underneath all the frameworks and the analysis and the strategic advice. Who actually wins in 2027? The AI or the artist? And I want to be upfront about something before I answer that. This video is different from most of what I make. Most of what I make is analysis, grounded in observable data, in industry patterns, in what's actually happening in production pipelines and hiring decisions and client behavior. I try to keep my opinions clearly labeled as opinions and my observations clearly labeled as observations. This video is my honest take, my perspective, built on everything I've been watching and thinking about for a long time. And because it's my take, you're allowed to disagree with it. I'm not presenting this as fact. I'm presenting it as the most carefully considered opinion I can give you on a question that matters enormously to a lot of people. And I want to give it to you straight. No hedging. No both sidesing it into uselessness. No, well, on one hand this, and on the other hand that, until you walk away with nothing. My honest take, the full thing. But before I give it, I need to tell you about a conversation I had recently that reframed how I think about this question entirely. A conversation that made me realize most people are asking the wrong question when they ask, AI versus artists, who wins? And once you understand what the right question actually is, the whole thing becomes much clearer. Here's what this video is. I'm going to give you my genuine, considered prediction for where the AI and 3D art relationship lands by 2027. Not 5 years out, not 10 years out. I'm not going to pretend I have that kind of visibility. 18 months to 2 years. A window I think is close enough to reason about with some confidence. I'll tell you specifically which types of 3D artists I think are in a genuinely strong position heading into that window. Which types are in a genuinely precarious one. And what I think the difference is between the two, because it's not what most people assume. I'll also give you my honest assessment of where I think AI development surprises people in the next 18 months. Not by being more capable than expected, by being less capable in specific ways that the current hype narrative doesn't acknowledge. And also by being more capable in specific areas that will catch some people off guard. And I'll tell you what I personally think is the most important decision a 3D artist can make right now in light of everything I believe is coming. This is the most personal video I've made on this topic, and I think it's the most useful one for exactly that reason. The conversation I mentioned, I was talking to a researcher, not a 3D artist, someone who works on AI systems. And I asked them a version of the question this video is about. I said, where do you honestly think this goes for creative professionals in the next couple of years? And they said something that stopped me. They said, the question, will AI replace artists, is the wrong question. The right question is, what happens to the things humans make when the cost of making things approaches zero? Because that's actually what's changing, not whether humans can make things. Whether human-made things retain their value when AI can make similar things for almost nothing. What happens to the value of human-made things when AI can make similar things for almost nothing? That's the real question. And it's a question that has been asked before, in different industries, in different eras, with answers that were sometimes encouraging and sometimes devastating and almost always more complicated than either side of the debate predicted. And understanding what those historical answers looked like and why they looked different in different contexts is what I think actually clarifies the prediction for 2027 in a way that the AI versus artists framing never quite manages. I want to build toward my take properly, because the take only makes sense with the full context. And the full context starts with that question, what happens to human-made things when AI can make similar things for almost nothing? Let me show you what I've concluded, and what it means for you specifically. The question of what happens to human-made things when a cheaper alternative arrives is not new. We have data. When photography arrived, painters panicked. The ability to capture a realistic likeness of a person which had been a primary commercial function of portraiture painting, was suddenly achievable in minutes rather than hours or days at a fraction of the cost. If you'd asked a portrait painter in 1850, will photography replace you? The honest answer was, for a significant portion of what you currently do commercially, yes. And that's what happened. The commercial portrait market for painters largely collapsed. But something else happened simultaneously that the portrait painters who were panicking didn't see clearly. Painting didn't die. It evolved, freed from the commercial obligation to produce realistic likenesses, because photography handled that function more efficiently. Painting went somewhere that photography couldn't follow. It became more expressive, more abstract, more interested in what a human perspective on a subject looked like rather than what the subject objectively looked like. Impressionism, modernism, expressionism. These movements were not despite photography. They were enabled by it. Photography liberated painting from the obligation of realistic representation and pointed it towards something more distinctively human. The commercial painters who survived and thrived were the ones who understood, consciously or instinctively, that their value was no longer in the realistic likeness. It was in the specifically human interpretation, in the point of view, in the thing that photography, by its mechanical nature, couldn't provide. Now, does this mean 3D artists will be fine? Because that's what always happens. I want to be careful here. History rhymes, but it doesn't repeat exactly. And there are specific ways the AI and 3D situation is more complicated than the photography and painting analogy suggests. I'll get to those, but the core insight holds. When a cheaper alternative takes over the functional commodity layer of a creative discipline, the discipline doesn't die. The value concentrates in the distinctively human layer, which is a different layer, and reaching it requires a different kind of work than what the commodity layer demanded. Okay, my honest prediction, both directions. Where AI surprises by being less capable than expected. The 3D native generation space. The tools that generate directly usable 3D geometry from text or image inputs. Current hype suggests these are approaching production usable quality at pace. My honest assessment, they're not advancing as fast toward production quality as the demos suggest. The gap between demo-impressive mesh generation and genuinely production-ready geometry for professional pipelines is still large. Topological quality, UV consistency, detail fidelity at a hero level. These are harder problems than the demos reveal. I think the artists who are most anxious about AI-generated geometry replacing their modeling work have approximately 18 to 24 more months than they think before that threat becomes genuinely immediate for professional-grade output. Not forever, but more time than the current anxiety suggests. Client behavior at the mid and lower market. The disruption of mid-market freelance rates by AI tools is real. We've talked about this. But I think it's moving somewhat slower than the doom narrative suggests because the client behavior change required is more friction-heavy than it looks. Clients have to learn new tools, develop new workflows, manage the quality inconsistency of AI output, handle the legal uncertainty around AI-generated commercial content. That adoption friction is buying working artists more time than the pure capability argument implies. Where AI surprises by being more capable than expected. Composite and background generation for commercial photography and product visualization. This is moving faster than most product viz artists realize. The quality of AI-generated contextual environments for product compositing is crossing the production usable threshold for certain applications right now. Not for all applications, but for enough that the lower to mid tier of product visualization, lifestyle shots, context environments, non-hero background elements, is going to face meaningfully more disruption faster than most artists in that space are prepared for. Creative direction assistance. The AI systems that help artists develop briefs, generate client-facing concept options, and iterate toward a creative direction are becoming genuinely useful in ways that will change how the early stages of commercial projects work. Not replacing the art director, but changing what the art director's time is spent on. Artists who haven't built the skills to operate above the execution layer will find this development more disruptive than they expected. Okay, my honest assessment of who's in a strong position and who isn't heading into 2027. This is the part where I'm going to be most direct. In a strong position, the specialist with genuine domain depth. The artist who has spent real time developing knowledge of a specific industry. Not just 3D skill applied broadly, but genuine understanding of how a specific client type thinks, what they need, what good work looks like in their specific context. The medical visualization artist who understands anatomy. The automotive viz specialist who understands how car manufacturers think about their vehicles. The ArchViz artist who understands how architects communicate design intent to clients. These people are not being replaced in the next 18 months by any tool currently developing. The domain knowledge gap is too large. The creative director who uses AI. The artist who has built genuine art direction capability, who can take a vague brief and turn it into a specific, excellent visual direction, and who uses AI tools to execute that direction more efficiently than they could manually. This is the winning combination. Better direction, faster execution, higher output per unit of time. The income ceiling for this profile is not shrinking. It's growing. The real-time and pipeline specialist. The Unreal Engine artist who understands production pipelines deeply enough to direct AI tools operating within them. The technical director who can evaluate and troubleshoot AI-generated output against real production standards. These people are in a strong position because their value is in the pipeline knowledge, not the execution alone. And AI tools that operate within pipelines need people who understand those pipelines to direct them effectively. In a precarious position, the commodity generalist. The artist whose primary value proposition is, I can make good 3D things. Without a specific niche, without deep domain knowledge, without a client relationship layer, without a creative direction capability. The generalist producing competent but undifferentiated work is the profile most directly in the path of AI disruption at the mid-market level. Not overnight, but over the next 18 to 24 months, the rate pressure on this profile is going to intensify in ways that will feel increasingly difficult to sustain. The artist whose entire value is in technical execution. The one who prides themselves on technical mastery of specific tools, but hasn't built anything above the execution layer. Clean topology, fast modeling, efficient pipeline work. These are real skills, and they have real value. But as AI handles more of the execution burden, the premium on execution alone decreases. The artist who hasn't built judgment, direction, or domain expertise on top of the technical foundation is going to feel that premium erode. The artist who is waiting to decide, the one who is watching the AI situation develop and planning to respond once things become clearer. Things are not going to become clearer before they become more disruptive. The window to build the skills that matter. Art direction, domain expertise, pipeline fluency, client relationship depth is open now and narrowing. Not closing, but narrowing. The artists who build those skills now will be positioned before the disruption fully arrives. The ones who wait will be building in response to disruption that's already underway. Okay, the answer I've been building toward. The most honest version I can give you. The question, AI versus artists. Who wins in 2027 is built on a false premise. It implies a competition between two things that are competing for the same position. And they're not. Here's what I actually believe. In 2027, AI wins the commodity layer of creative work. Comprehensively and definitively. The repetitive, the generic, the undifferentiated, the purely functional. AI produces this faster, cheaper, and increasingly well enough for the clients who needed it done competently rather than exceptionally. That layer of the market is gone for human artists. Not shrinking gone, and pretending otherwise is not useful. In 2027, artists win the distinctively human layer. The layer where creative judgment, domain expertise, client relationship, and genuine point of view determine the value of the output. Where the work is not just competent, but specific to this brand, this client, this brief, this context in a way that required a human mind to produce. That layer is not just surviving. It's appreciating, because the commodity layer being absorbed by AI concentrates the market's attention and budget on the human layer in a way that benefits the artists who occupy it. The artists who win are the ones who are clearly, unambiguously, specifically in the human layer, who have built genuine domain expertise and genuine creative direction capability and genuine client relationships, who use AI tools to produce the human layer work more efficiently, not to approximate the human layer with AI output. The artists who lose are the ones who are still primarily in the commodity layer, who haven't built toward the human layer yet, when the commodity layer fully collapses. And that's the honest answer. Not AI wins or artists win. The commodity layer goes to AI. The human layer goes to artists. And everything comes down to which layer you're in. I said I'd tell you what I personally think is the most important decision a 3D artist can make right now. Here it is. Decide which layer you're building toward and commit to it. Not, I'll keep doing what I'm doing and see what happens. Not, I'll start building toward the human layer once the AI situation becomes clearer. A clear, specific decision about what distinctively human value you're going to develop and offer. Is it domain expertise in a specific industry? Then make the decision about which industry and start building that knowledge now, not alongside your existing generalist work as a deliberate replacement for it. Is it creative direction capability? Then start practicing the specific habits that develop it, evaluating work critically, studying visual language, working on brief development skills, every day consistently. Is it pipeline depth in a specific technical area? Then go deeper in that specific area. Not broader, deeper, until you genuinely know it at a level that makes you the obvious expert. The decision doesn't have to be perfect. The first map is never perfect, but it has to be a decision. A commitment to move in a specific direction rather than staying in the middle of the road waiting for traffic to clear. Because in 2027, the middle of the road is the most dangerous place to be. Now, I want to acknowledge something before I close this out. Everything I've said in this video assumes a relatively predictable progression of AI capability over the next 18 months. An advancement that's significant and measurable, but that follows broadly the trajectory we've been on. That's a reasonable assumption, but it's not a guaranteed one. There's a version of the next 18 months where AI capability in generative 3D takes a step change, a sudden, significant leap rather than a gradual advancement, where something that currently isn't production viable becomes production viable much faster than the current trajectory suggests. And if that happens, the timeline I've described compresses significantly. The commodity layer collapses faster. The pressure on the mid-market intensifies sooner. The window to build toward the human layer shrinks. I don't think this is the most likely scenario, but I think it's possible enough to acknowledge. And I think it changes one thing about the strategic advice I've given throughout this series. Not the direction, the urgency. The direction, build toward the human layer, develop genuine domain expertise, invest in creative direction capability, go deep in a specific niche. That direction is correct regardless of whether the timeline is 18 months or 36 months. The urgency is what changes if there's a step change. And the honest response to that uncertainty is not to panic. It's to move with more intention than you currently are. To treat the direction decisions we've been discussing throughout this series as more urgent rather than less. How to move with that kind of urgency practically without it tipping into anxiety is something I want to go into in the next video. The specific daily practices, the specific decisions, the specific mindset that allows you to build fast without burning out in the process. Because urgency and sustainability are not opposites. They just require different management than urgency alone. So, AI versus 3D artists. Who wins in 2027? The commodity layer goes to AI. Comprehensively. The generic, the repetitive, the purely functional. AI produces this better, cheaper, and fast enough for the clients who needed competent rather than exceptional. The human layer goes to artists. The work that is specific, judgment-driven, domain-deep, relationship-dependent. This layer appreciates as the commodity layer is absorbed. The artists who win are clearly in the human layer. The ones who lose are still primarily in the commodity layer when it fully collapses. And the most important decision right now, which layer are you building toward? Not theoretically, specifically, with a commitment that changes what you do this week. Because in 2027, the middle of the road is the most dangerous place to be. This is my honest take. You can agree with it. You can push back on it. But I hope it's useful, because useful is the only reason I make any of this. Subscribe if this kind of honest, personal, forward-looking content is what you come here for. Hit the bell for the next video, because the urgency without burnout conversation is the practical close to everything this video opened up. And drop a comment. Do you agree with my take? Disagree? Tell me specifically where you see it differently. I genuinely want to know, and I read every single one. I'll see you in the next one.